Well, Kevin, welcome to the Everyday Heroes Camporee. We really appreciate you joining us.
My pleasure.
Um, I'm wondering if you can tell us a bit about yourself and your career.
Currently, I'm a career firefighter paramedic with the town of Hamden. Before that, uh, I was uh, working for AMR, the transport service in New Haven County, for about 10 years. And then before that, in 2001, uh, or up to 2001, I should say, from 96, or excuse me, 1995 to 2001, I was in the Army in the 75th Ranger Regiment as a medic. And then before that, I worked as a civilian EMT, and I was also in the National Guard in Pennsylvania at the time.
So,
And
medical
before
all the way
that,
through.
yeah, more or less, yeah,
Awesome. Can you
few
tell us
odd
a little
jobs
bit?
here and there.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you do in scouting?
Right now, I'm an assistant scoutmaster with Troop 600 here in Hamden.
And were
But
you a
I've
scout?
held, I'm sorry?
Were you a scout as a youth?
Yes, I was actually. I started out in Cubs way back when, and worked my way up to Star before I moved here in high school. And unfortunately, I only made it to Star. But after high school, when I was in the National Guard, I also was an assistant scoutmaster down in Pennsylvania with the troop down there. Unfortunately, when I was active duty from 95 to 2000, I didn't have time. So there was quite a pause, and I didn't pick it up again until 2010, actually, the centennial. I
Awesome.
started working those again.
Very cool. Um, how important do you think scouting is to the youth today?
Uh, I think it's very important. It teaches life skills. If nothing else, it exposes people to different career fields if they're interested in it, either through exploring or just through the merit badge work. Myself in particular, I didn't know anything about the medical field until I was in Scouts, and that was my first exposure to it when I thought I would like it. Uh, it just teaches all around life skills. It's a good thing to have. It's better we have it than we don't.
Yeah, I agree. A different track. You were exposed to coronavirus as a function of your job, and you were
So,
subsequently hospitalized with COVID-19. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and what your feelings are about high risk careers as a first responder are as a result?
um, it was all very sudden. I can tell you that. The It was early on in the when the pandemic started to hit, so we weren't taking precautions for every single person. But if someone was symptomatic, they would have us take precautions with the mask and the gowns and whatnot. And the patient that we went to wasn't symptomatic, so we didn't take any precautions. And then we find out 24 hours later, when she was in the hospital, they tested her and found out she was positive. And within 48 hours of that, or I guess within 2 days, 3 days of that, I became symptomatic myself. So
Wow.
yeah, and then within a week, by the end of the week, I should say, I was tested and found positive. And then 2 days after that, my breathing got so bad that I got transported down to Yale and spent 5 days down at Yale Haven Hospital.
Wow. Well,
Yeah,
I'm glad you're better. I think we all are.
yeah, thank you. I'm
Oh,
glad I'm better too. And I mean, as far as first responders, it's as much as I hate to say it, it's part of the job. It comes with the territory. You know, just like going into burning buildings, we go to help the sick and injured, and there are times where we have to do. I mean, that's what we do. We do the stuff that nobody else either wants to do or is able to do, and we go do it. And we accept that as part of the job. So, I
yeah.
mean, if it's not the coronavirus, it's influenza or measles or any number of things that we're exposed to on a daily basis. And you can't go around and we can't work in fear of it, but it's the what's the word I'm looking for? It's a manageable risk. You wear your positive protection, your PPE. Wash your hands. That's a big thing. Wash your hands. That's my plug. Wash your hands. Um, and There's only so much you can do. But if you do, it's a numbers game. If you do use the precautions, chances are you'll be fine.
Good. Good to know. Okay, so I have a question from a local scout from Madison. How
Sure.
did you decide to pursue the field of firefighter? And you're also a paramedic, correct?
Correct. Um, let's see. Well, if you want to go all the way back to when I could barely walk, um, at one point in their life, every kid wanted to be a firefighter. At one point in their life, every kid saw the big shiny red truck with the lights and was like, "Wow, that's so cool." Most of us outgrew that. I, however, did not. When I was literally a toddler, barely old enough to walk, uh, and I was staying at my grandmother's house outside of Philadelphia, I walked from her house to the local fire department because it was on the way to the grocery store. So I knew how to get to the grocery store. So I walked there without her knowing. And when I got there, they were like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "I want to be a fireman." And so eventually the neighbors came and got me, and I was sitting on the back of the fire truck with a helmet on, about this big, eating an ice cream cone, saying, "I'm a fireman." So if you want to go back, that's when it started. Uh, but I've always been fascinated by the profession and the ability to help others, and again, doing things that there are days when I can't believe we get paid to do what we do. A lot of times it's fun, sometimes it's not. But again, you take that, you go into the profession knowing that, kind of like being in the service,
Yeah.
being in the military.
So do you
Um,
go
no,
ahead?
I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say I kept it in my head throughout the years. I volunteered for a while when I was younger, and literally was standing in the volunteer firehouse looking around, saying the only thing cooler than what we do right now would be getting paid to do this. And fast forward to 2010 when I had the opportunity, and I took it.
Awesome. So from the same scout, do you think about the risks on a day-to-day basis?
Not on a day-to-day basis. Again, I mean, you can't. It's a risky job. You can't. There's no way not to think about them, but you can't focus on them. You can't let it control your response. I forget the exact quote, but George Patton said once that fear is okay, but you can't let the fear control you. And it's kind of like with us. I mean, we know that it's inherently risky what we do, but again, we manage the risk. We train ourselves as much as we can. We practice a lot. Um, Anybody that's been in Hamden right now could see behind the middle school we have a trailer. We've been using that for the past couple of weeks that we go in and practice putting out fires as much as we can. So we think about the risk, but again, we don't let the fear of it control our actions.
Okay. Do you ever question whether it was the right choice of a career for yourself?
Once I did, once I did, and I say I can laugh about it now, but the very first time that I responded to a fire, I had been a firefighter about 5 years at this point, so I had been to fires before, but I had never been the guy with the nozzle in my hand going into the burning building. And I'm not gonna lie, when I had to do that, when I was the guy that they were like, okay, there's the fire, go put out that fire, you put that fire out. I'm not gonna lie, I had to sit there and think about, did I make the wisest career choice? But again, it was just a split second thing. It's like, okay, I'm here. I have well trained people behind me. They're not going to let anything happen to me. Uh, they're not going to let me do anything inherently unsafe. And we just went into the job. So that was the only time I could honestly say I questioned it. But no, not really. Like I said, this is the job that every kid dreams about. So
Awesome.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it.
Good. I have another question from a scout from Southington.
Mhm.
Has there been one experience that you can think of that affected or changed you the most, and what would that be?
Mm, yes. Excuse me. Yes, there is one. I would say it was absolutely the worst call I ever did in my career, and uh, there was a time when I didn't even want to talk about it. But I've been to counseling and I've been able to come to grips to it. But yeah, it was the first time I had taken a person that I knew, a friend of mine, a personal friend of mine, took them to the hospital, and unfortunately, she was there was nothing we could have done. She was deceased before we even got to the hospital, or excuse me, before we even got to her house. And but we still worked on her. We still did absolutely everything we could, and it was I was shaken by it. Absolutely, yeah. It was very difficult for me to accept. But again, I they have support for us and things like that, and I was able to work through it. It shook me, that's for sure, definitely. And to talking to a friend of mine that I work with, he said if you do the job long enough, eventually you will see someone you know. And that was the first time it had happened to me, and it was definitely a career defining moment.
So considering those things, you've been injured, you've lost a friend that were sent to care for. You got the coronavirus. Um, has that made you rethink your career at all?
Um, Honestly, no, no, not really. If anything, I wish I had started sooner.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I was at the age where a lot of guys retire when I started. I was 40 years old, and the hose isn't getting any lighter. But I still have to go and do it. And I still have to keep up with these guys who are, 20, 30 years younger than me. But as far as thinking I made the wrong decision, no, not really. It's the I found that the people that do this job, it's kind of like being in the service. It's a calling. Nobody does it to get rich. You're not going to get rich doing this job. But uh, who is it? Anthony Bourdain has a really good quote about it, and I wish I could remember it. But he said more or less that the guys he knows that are firefighters, they're kind of like Marines in that they do it because they have a passion for it. They don't. That's the only way to describe it. We're always, you know, not always, but sometimes we get the short end of the stick. Unless there's a big sentinel event like a 9/11 or a pandemic or something like that. Most of the time, we're fighting for scraps, for money to pay for our equipment and whatnot. And, you know, uh, but people still do the job, because we love it. We absolutely love it. It is the everybody who does it thinks it's the coolest job in the world,
Awesome.
and I
So
will
I guess
agree with that.
I guess you'd kind of have to have a passion for it.
Absolutely,
Um,
yeah. Like I
what
said,
is
it's like being very similar to being in the military or being
Yeah,
a nurse or a doctor. I mean, you have to want to do
yeah, yeah, definitely. What is the proudest moment of your career?
it. I had to give that one some thought, but definitely when the first time we did CPR on a patient and he survived and walked out of the hospital, it was the perfect storm of everything that could have gone right did. This gentleman, when he passed out and had his heart attack, there were first responders there that were volunteer firefighters, so they started CPR immediately. They put him on an AED immediately. We were there within 5 minutes of his collapse. We were on our way to the hospital within 10, and we got pulses back on this patient before we got to the hospital. And he was literally able to walk out of the hospital without any problems, without any deficit 2 weeks later. And
Wow.
knowing that I was part of that team, because it is a team, it's not just one guy. It's always a team. There's always everybody has a role to play, and knowing that I was part of that team, that we all worked together to save that guy, definitely, I could say that was definitely the proudest part of my career.
Okay, and then from the same scout, what is the most difficult part of your job?
Hmm. Uh. Well, I would say Well, it depends on who you ask. It varies for everybody. And again, this is one I had to. These are some really good questions. I appreciate these questions. They're very, very good questions. I had to sit down and think about these, to think about my responses. And uh, I would say the hardest part is dealing with when we go to a house and a patient dies. It doesn't get any easier, and there's it's never the same situation twice. But dealing with the families, because there's always grieving families to deal with, that it doesn't get any easier. And there's no way, there's nothing you can do to practice. I mean, like I was saying, we can practice putting out fires, we can practice cutting cars open and taking people out. You know, we can practice doing CPR, we can practice everything that we do for the job, except that one time where we have to go and talk to a patient's family that just passed away.
Mhm.
And there's no easy way to do it. That is definitely the most difficult part of the job
That makes a lot of
for
sense.
me. For me, anyway. I
Yeah,
mean, some
yeah.
people they're able to do it, but I like I said, it doesn't get any easier when I do. It
Okay.
hasn't.
So that leads to the next question, which is, what are some of the things that you do to manage either stress or fear particularly during the pandemic?
Uh, well, I'm not gonna lie. During this pandemic, it really hasn't affected me as much as some of my peers. So I mean, short of getting sick, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't really feel too sick when I did get sick. Um, so I haven't really had to worry about it. But some of the things that I do just on a regular basis, I spend as much time as I can with my son. Uh, Definitely with scouting because he's part of the troop. That it's, I mean, you know, going camping, doing outdoor stuff is such a what's the word I'm looking for? It's very soothing. It helps to de-escalate, I guess, if you will. There's any number of things to do. One of the things that we have available to us, like I said, is counseling services, and they teach us coping mechanisms that you know. For some people, it's exercise. For some people, it's playing music or sports. Um,
Mhm.
like I said, I try and spend as much time doing things with my son, whether it's going for a hike or like today we were cleaning the garage. But again, I try not to let the fear uh, stop me from doing what I'm doing, as it were.
Good. All right. So I saw your video on Facebook, and I know that you started making masks to protect folks, and you charge a very nominal fee. But can you talk to us a little bit about that and how you decided to start doing that and how you came up with your design?
I'd love to. Um, Hang on just one moment. I will be
Sure.
right back. But don't go anywhere. Okay, we're back. All right. Normally, you see people that have the masks that go around the ears with the elastics.
Mhm.
And a lot of friends I have that wear those at work, at the hospitals and nursing homes, on the ambulance, they don't like them because eventually it rubs the ears raw in the back. And if you've seen people, they've made holders to pull it off the ears so it doesn't do that. And I never liked the feel of that. So I was thinking that my grandmother, when she was a nurse, my grandmother used to be a nurse. She was her entire career for about 50 years. She worked. She did everything from private duty, and for a while she worked in a TB ward and polio ward because she was exposed to both, but she never contracted either disease. So back then they're like, okay, tag, you're it, you get to do it. But years ago, she gave me one of her masks, and I don't know if you can see, but unfortunately now it's very threadbare from being almost 60 years old. So I looked at it and I figured I'd copy the design because back when I was in Scouts, I learned how to sew using a sewing machine. So I looked at it and I figured it'd be a pretty easy design. It's just a couple layers of gauze, and these are 1/2 inch wide cotton webbing that's on it. So I bought the materials and basically copied the design and came up with my own. And it ties behind your head, kind of like on that TV show MASH. I'll put one on here in a second. And if you can see, I put a label on there. I got labels made to say Mother Jerome's in honor of my grandmother. Also, that way, because a lot of people complain with the masks when they're one color, they can't tell which way is up or which way is out because they don't want to put the dirty side against their face. So that way you can tell which is the side that's on the outside. And so just like if you've ever seen that TV show MASH, worn the same way, where you tie it behind your neck and then tie the other ones behind your head. And I also put a piece of aluminum to bend there and seal it around your glasses so that your glasses don't steam up. So anyway, so I started making those. And the video that you referenced, I told people that for every one I make and sell, I would make one and donate it to people that need them, either first responders or nursing homes or whoever would need one. And I've already got 100 that I have to make to donate, and more coming. So, but I got Gabriel to help me and a few other people. So,
Oh, you'll be busy, that's for sure.
yeah, it'll keep me busy.
Another question from a scout in North Brantford.
Okay.
Um, would you recommend to youth today that they pursue a career in fire safety, and why?
Yes, because again, I think it's the greatest job in the world. Who doesn't love a firefighter? And like I said, there are times where I have to pinch myself and say, like, I cannot believe they're paying us to do what we get. I mean, I get to play with big giant trucks and all kinds, and I get to break stuff. I mean, how cool is that? But again, it's just if if you want to do it, do it. It's a calling. It's a passion. Years ago, and then I'm showing my age here. There was a show called Emergency 51 on I forget which channel it was, but Johnny Gage and Roy DeSoto, and an entire generation of firefighters, and EMTs, and paramedics can blame being caught the bug or having caught the bug from those two guys. And they travel the world now, going to firefighter conventions, signing autographs and things like that. These two actors, but probably then is when I first thought about it. But yeah, absolutely. If it's something you want to do, helping people, by all means, do it. Yes, it's a very very rewarding career. The times that are good outweigh the times that are bad. I would say definitely. So yes, if you want to do it, by all means, it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. And then lastly, so just in general, what advice might you give to the youth today?
Hmm, these are good questions. Uh, what advice? Um, Follow your passion. Follow your passion. If you want to be a bread baker, be a bread baker. But whatever you do, don't try and seek perfection, but seek excellence. Because perfection is almost impossible to get to, but you can definitely excel at what you're doing. Um, when I was an EMT first, for the first 5 years, I thought I was pretty darn good at my job. And then I went into active duty in the army and went into the Ranger Regiment, and I realized that I knew nothing. After 5 years, I thought I knew everything, and I knew zero about what to do with my job and how to do it. How to do it, I wouldn't say properly, but better than I was doing. I thought I was resting on my laurels. Uh, a very wise physician assistant I used to work for, who was one of my early mentors, said that uh, if you should never blow your own horn, you should never toot your own horn, because if you're that good, you'll never have to do it. Everyone else will do it for you.
That's a great piece of advice. I love it.
I try. I took that, put it in my back pocket, and I try and live by it as much as I can because it's so true. Uh, yeah, absolutely. That's
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Well, so
It has
Kevin,
carried me out in my career. That's
yeah,
for sure.
good, awesome. On behalf of all of us in scouting, we are so thankful to all that you do every day, keeping folks safe, putting yourself in harm's way. You're a first responder, and you're that front line of protection for many of us. And we just really appreciate it and want to thank you for keeping us all safe.
No, it's my pleasure.
You're,
I
thank
would
you.